Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Lindsay, LiJo here, and I have the lovely Shan Powers with
Hi.
me today. And as many of you know, objective personality has been a part of my own growth journey for the past few years, and I consider Shan almost more than family at this point because
Right.
of all that she knows about me and knows about my functions and my life. And
Right.
what I found to be such a great asset about objective personality is their ability to normalize the darkness of the things that we experience, especially in transitional phases of our life. So, for instance, as you guys have heard many times, I've told you how, our saviors are meant to get us to the point of survival so that we can reproduce and be done. We have the advantage now with Western medicine and knowing about health practices that we live much longer lives. And a result of that is the fact that we get to really deep dive into a side of our consciousness, which is much more difficult to sometimes navigate and can have a really dark side of it. So, Shannon, just to start off, from your experience, viewing so many people, knowing the code, what does the darkness look like at scale, and when do people kind of know that this is something they're experiencing in their life?
Right. Right. Sure. Honestly, what it kind of seems like is that we're all sort of starting off life in these matrix pods, you know? It feels like everybody's just kind of in their own bubble, in their own goop, in their own whatever, in their own perspective, you know? Everyone has their own personal movie that's kind of playing in their life. And I don't, it's when you interact with the outside world, you just assume everything's fine because the social etiquette, the appropriate social etiquette seems to be, how do you do? I'm happy, I'm fine, I'm doing good because animalistically, if somebody is a negative force or expresses negativity, we're just, we've got the functions of don't ever experience pain ever. Don't ever, go away from pain, run away from that, don't engage in that. And so socially, it seems like we've kind of learned as a species to just keep it to ourselves, keep any negativity, keep any darkness to ourselves, because the appropriate thing to do is if I'm a source of positivity, then other people are going to want to be around me. So I'm happy, I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
good, I'm great, I'm wonderful. And if you have any darkness, you have to go away. You have to keep that to yourself. You have to go into a very dark hole. Don't speak of it. Don't talk of it. Always project yourself as being someone that is above something like that. And therefore, every single person is stuck in their own world, thinking that they're the only ones in turmoil and the only ones in this matrix bubble of goo, of hell that they're going through. And if they talk about it, a lot of times, even family, even like close family that loves you and cares about you, will still like teach you in a way to keep it to yourself. Like, hey, we don't talk about that. We don't bring that up. We don't want to, dial that down because that they know that if you keep talking about that even in public, that you'll get kind of ostracized. So the human species seems to learn, hold on to your darkness, keep it, cauldron, keep it to yourself. And therefore, when they ever meet somebody else is going through the same darkness, it becomes instant, like family, like a friend, because wait a minute, you go through this too, it's like a shock, it's a surprise. And there has been a trend lately, which I kind of just it's fascinating and I absolutely love it. Like how much social media and everything has been like shining a light on like, hey, by the way, mental health. And I think a lot of that is coming from things like you'll have school shootings, you'll have situations where society is not able to close their eyes anymore. There's just
Mm-hmm.
large events happening, give as many SE examples as you can fill in here, where society is like, okay, we can't pretend like kids in mass aren't going through this. There's
Mm-hmm.
statistics and everything that's now coming out. So it's a wonderful thing that a lot of people, even like I've noticed on Instagram, like where they'll have reels where the person's like, I'm not doing good today. And then like because that person did and another person is like, I'm also not doing good today. So that, collective is the collective unconscious is now spreading that it's going to be okay. And we love you and we're going to pour encouragement on you if you talk about your darkness. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that seems to be kind of trending. And I would guess that obviously that's going to get more and more and more as people are allowed to communicate about what they're really going through. So,
Yeah, definitely. And again, that's the thing that I think the OP community does so well is
Yeah.
that, you know, you guys have brainwashed us to the fact that like this is okay to talk about. And so everyone's allowed to, and
Right.
then that brings such a sense of community because it's okay. The culture is that it's okay to talk about the struggles, and it's
Yeah.
okay to talk about the wins. It's okay to talk about the losses. It's all okay because it's
Mm,
all normal. And
mm.
that just opens up such a space where people can be themselves and really just, I think it facilitates that not only like on, on a reel or on Instagram or whatever, when people are just pushing it out there, but
Yeah.
it creates the dialogue then between people in the community, which I think is just, great.
It's so beautiful to watch, right? Like, yeah, there's a group that was made. I think her name was Natasha, maybe. I think she's an INFP. I forget the spelling of her name. Feminine
Oh,
sensory.
I
Sorry.
know who you are talking about. Yep.
It's a group like she created it, I think, and I think it's like AA or like basically like processing your demons or something like that. I'm like, God
Hmm.
damn, it's like anything that you would just absolutely hope for is a bunch of people
Yeah.
getting around and being like, I had a really hard week. I had a really hard
Hmm.
day. I'm having a really bad tidal wave and I just need to talk it out. And it's just like
Hmm.
just it's just beautiful connection, like it's actual real connection. So it's really nice
Yeah.
to watch.
Yeah, it is. So we're going to transition to talking about each of the eight functions. And so for all of you out there who have, a particular type or family member or a friend, and, someone's going through a hard time, what might it look like with a particular function? Or even if you're still, you don't know your type yet, if you're finding yourself in a place that, this is kind of like the pinnacle of where your struggle boils down to, it could potentially be an indicator. But we're going to go through the eight functions to really talk about what it looks like to be in a place that can sometimes feel hopeless. It can sometimes feel overwhelming, and how can that be transitioned out of? And also just the fact that it is normal to be in that place when
Yeah.
you have those particular functions. So
Right.
we're going to go through the observer functions first. So we're going to start off with extroverted intuition. So Shan, with the people that you've spoken with and who you know with extroverted intuition, what does it look like in that transitional phase of life when someone's been going all in on their savior, their any,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
then where are they really getting hit at the end of the day?
Right. So obviously every person is going to be a combination of parts. A
Hmm.
lot of times like they get hit most by their last animal, but if we
Hmm.
narrow in and specifically talk about just like if you're lead any, what I
Hmm.
see, the desire, the all in, the glory, the feel good, like you just and pausing for 2 seconds, you can't see your first function a lot of time. Like that
Yeah.
seems to be pretty most people
Hmm.
cannot really see that first function because it's just
Hmm.
so all encompassing. But with lead any, it's the endless possibilities, the higher self-actualization. That's if you have DI. The multitude of possibilities, the multiverse, the different, like the amount your brain wants to spend on, there is a possibility of living that is more interesting than the one I'm living, and
Hmm.
that becomes a very like lonely, empty, if you're constantly pinging and you're constantly going outward and going, but it could be, but it might be, but it, like this constant what if
Hmm.
to insanity. Your own personal actual life in reality is lost. You would lose.
Mm.
And what's so weird is that the desire is to have the most epic reality, right? In that any
Right.
possibilities, and
Hmm.
you end up having the worst kind of reality in actual reality. It feels like if your head is in space all the time. This is all the time because everybody who has demon intuition is like, I know what you're talking about. It's like, yes, we're talking about all day, you know, all day in space.
Hmm.
If you're there all the time, coming back down to the physical ground becomes shocking, where you're like,
Yeah.
I don't want to look at that. I don't want to have to do paperwork. I don't want to have to pay my bills. I don't want to have to, sign up for healthcare. Like the very microscopic physical universe of SI, it just
Hmm.
becomes mind numbingly boring. And
Hmm.
it's the ones that have won have been like, I'm going to, like, I was Dallas that said this, Dallas, who's NEFI. It was just like the perfectly worded. I was like, that's exactly how I've wanted to word it. And he said, I've had to like kill off the different realities
Hmm.
to choose this particular reality that I actually want to live in.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, there you go, because now you're going to create your reality. Now you're going to live in the best existence that you possibly could have, because you dropped all the what ifs, you dropped all the possibilities, and you got focused, and you're like, this is my path. And physical reality is boring. A lot of it is very boring, but it's not psychotic, because that's what happens when
Hmm.
you just go by the default wiring. It gets very extreme in the neurotic and then extreme depressing. And
Hmm.
people will remember a high. People will remember that one time I felt so good and I was in this, space, and they'll
Right.
remember that even though that was like 0.00001% of their lifespan, and they
Hmm.
forget that the 99% of their lifespan is in this dread, in this drudge. So that's what I would say
Hmm.
for specifically the lead NEs.
Yeah. So would you say kind of like then, that boil down is like where any will get hit is the realization at some point that they haven't really built a life, like a
Yeah,
life in reality,
yeah, yeah,
because you have that SI that's like going to be like consistent in a particular direction, consistent with a particular method, right?
yeah.
Of living, of building. And then and yeah, so I think does that sound about right?
Hell yeah. Yeah, that's the heartbreak, because
Hmm.
the OI is the building function. It wants to
Hmm.
create chapters of life. It wants to put a block down and then climb a ladder, like create a stair step of, if this is here, then this is next. If this is next, then this is next. And then they're
Right.
actually the OI is like what Dallas was saying, like killing off all the other pathways to go, this is going to be my path, because I do want to reach a higher
Hmm.
existence. But the only way to do that is to dredge through the mud to make that physically real, instead of
Right.
staying in the imagination, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's so good. I remember you sharing that what Dallas said, and I was like, oh gosh, yeah, that is like the perfect kind of like
Yeah,
remedy, if you will, for
right.
for that function. Um, awesome. So okay, so let's keep moving forward. So let's go to introverted intuition.
Okay.
Um, and so you're right when you say like it's very hard to see your first function. It's I
Right.
think even once I began to see parts of it, and I was like, oh, that thing that I'm doing all the time. When I began to see more parts of it,
It's like a
I
flicker, huh?
still, yeah, I still was missing the overall umbrella of
Right.
what it was doing. And then when I had the moment of actually seeing that, it was in a sense like scary because it's like you're looking
Yeah.
at something, you're like, I'm not making my own decisions. Like I have the
Right.
perception of making my own decisions, but it's like I'm driven by this function all
Yes.
of the time.
Isn't that crazy?
So yeah, that was a very interesting part of my own growth. But um,
Narrowed
so for
into one
the
sentence.
yeah, so for the introverted intuitive, so just we'll kind of keep with the same thing of having this function first.
Yeah.
What have you seen as being the tidal wave, being the darkness that they get hit with, a little bit later in life?
Right. Well, I definitely think the theme is going to be killing off, because the interesting thing is, like, killing off the possibilities. I think the fascinating thing about OI in general is that it has a thing. It has a pet project. That's the way I like to talk about the IJs, is they have a pet project that they are working on. And if something either gets in the way, or distracts, or doesn't serve the pet project, it needs to be eliminated. It gets in the way.
Hmm.
You're not serving my path, my way. I'm doing a thing.
Hmm.
And the crazy thing about that is that, yes, like, it's probably, yeah, I don't know, 70% of information needs to be filtered out, right? But there's
Hmm.
the 30% that are the answers to the actual thing that the NI is working on. But
Right.
because the job of NI is always to sift, to eliminate, to merge, that's a big one. How can I make
Hmm.
all of these the same?
The same.
Right. It misses the intricacies of actually that was different, and that was the puzzle piece you needed to solve the Rubik's cube you're working on, and that's where a lot of it is, the obsession of the OI and how much information isn't able to make it in, and
Hmm.
therefore they will be working on a pet project, but a lot of times they will be spinning in circles. It's a
Hmm.
very crazy making, it feels like, you're on
Yeah.
that like hamster wheel, and you're like, I think I've seen this before, because
Hmm.
if all of your information is only going to be inside of your known information, and you're trying to solve something and the information is obviously outside of your known information, it just takes a long time, and that's where a lot of the NIs will really struggle down the road, because it takes a really really long time to get the information into the NI's head, and that's the
Hmm.
biggest struggle, because like we were talking about earlier, of you could live for a really long time doing your saviors and living in a subjective world and not getting punished by the universe because of it, because you'll be able to do your job, you'll be able to have a relationship, and most people are on their own, everyone is in their own matrix pod, so they're really not even paying attention to you. So you're
Hmm.
in your own world trying to solve your own problems, and it will take so long for the realizations to come in, and for the person to even realize at all that they are not even on the path that they thought they were on, or that the
Hmm.
information is not even close to inside of their own, matrix. And
Hmm.
the thing that I've seen Dave do, where he was like, early on, he started playing the objectivity game. That's where the obsession came from, where it's like,
Hmm.
if I set a date, if I set a sensor number, a
Hmm.
sensor date and a sensor number, it catches me on, you haven't actually solved this problem. So
Right.
you could say you're doing good, and I will be able to lie to you for a really long time. But it's
Hmm.
that accountability with the outside world that then goes, well, okay. So I do need to take in some actual new experiences. I need to do
Hmm.
something outside of my routine. I need to do something that causes chaos for the purpose of more order later on. And that's going to be the biggest one
Yes.
for OIs in general, is that so much of learning is through chaos. It is
Hmm.
through shaking up the chessboard, and it's just not going to come naturally. But that would be one where, if you are setting your objective timelines for yourself and you're like, it's been a week or it's been 6 months, this is still not solved, I'm being a bullshitter, let me call myself out and go, I'm going to talk to people about this. Hey, now that I'm listening, because that's a big one, now that I'm
Hmm.
actually listening, tell me all the shit that is so embarrassing that you're not willing to tell me, that I'm not willing to listen to, because I'm now ready to receive, because I'm
Hmm.
trying to work on my pet project. It's not working. And I need random information from the outside world. Throw it at me.
Hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so good. Like when you were saying, putting the number to it and to have some kind of like objective accountability, NI is so slippery. It can convince itself that, oh yeah, I'm doing the thing, I'm doing the work, things
Right.
are shifting, but it's like you are running in your own hamster wheel.
Right.
And but it's it's such a manipulative function, I think, in the fact that like it repositions things so well. It looks like,
Yeah.
oh wait, we're still talking about the same 8 glasses of water thing.
Right.
Yeah, but like I kind of messed it around, like food. I mean, it looks different to me if you ask me. And so
So
so we
true.
trick ourselves, we trick everyone else for like a minute,
Right.
then they realize what we're up to. But
That's so good.
but
That's really true. Yeah.
yeah, and it's having the outside accountability, even having people in your life who have like your function, like
Mm.
that SE function higher. I mean, they'll
Yeah.
call you out on it because to them it's obvious.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
if you have somebody in your life that has SE, their job is now to say this is different, this is different, this is different. So
yeah, and you're like, oh gosh, okay, well, it's not to be that different, right? um,
right, right.
yeah, and then the updating, because the project, I think, a lot of times what happens to intuitives in general is that you you're creating such a simulation in your brain,
Mm,
like that is what feels the most real to you, and so
right.
like therefore it's like you've construed it for reality.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
oh, this is real, I'm really working on these things, I'm really doing this, there's so much
Mm.
happening. But the truth is, with the when you actually look at the sensor, like either nothing has changed or not much has
Yeah,
changed, or and you're stuck with the same stuff with NI.
right,
So and then just the fact that telling yourself that you're allowed to take in the new information, and that you won't, it's going to feel like death, I think, a lot of times
yeah,
for the NI. Like, I'm going to shake something up knowing that it's going to disrupt like the perfect articulated dynamic I've created for myself. Like,
right,
I'm going to do that on purpose. Why? And I think that's what
right,
the brain says. It's like,
right,
why would I do something that would shake things up to the point where I have to, like, feel pain and experience chaos? But
right,
then realizing that the on the other side is like, yeah, it really is going to suck probably at first,
right,
it is going to
right,
create hell. But
right.
without creating that hell, you're not able to just really create the cognitive flexibility just to be able to move through it again. Because the truth is like you do move through it, and then you realize,
Right.
oh, I didn't die as a result of that.
And
So
and
maybe I
on
can do
that,
it.
sorry,
Mm-hmm.
and on that same exact note, 1,000%, here's what everybody needs to know, and this is with every function, is that it's already chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think that's what's so interesting is everyone's trying to put like a, put their lock their elbows against a giant tidal wave of ocean water coming at you. Like, okay, stop. But like, it's already super chaotic. Like
Mm-hmm.
the storm is already there, and the
Right.
brain has a beautiful ability or horrible ability to go, I just don't want to look at that. So the chaos is
Mm-hmm.
already there. It's
Yeah.
already pure chaos, and the mind is just closing its eyes to that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
good to
Damn, it's so
recognize,
true.
yeah, you already have a explosion that's right under the surface. And the second you
Yeah.
go look at it, yes, it looks like it's blowing up in your face, but it's been there all along. So
Yeah.
that helps to know that you're actually letting a controlled burn happen instead of a forest fire later on when it's
Yeah.
under your terms.
Yeah. I like that controlled burn. Yeah, that's actually a great way to say it. Um, okay. All right. So let's move. Well, okay. Since we just did NI, let's go over to SE.
All right.
And so I can't wait to hear your thoughts too as an SE saver. So,
Yeah,
SE, where does it find itself in its hardest times after it's been doing its SE
right.
nonstop for
Eh,
years?
eh, yeah, so I have Savior SE in the middle, and one of the most fascinating things about SE is it's very busy. Same thing with NE. It's busy doing something. It's very busy gathering information, and it doesn't realize that it's doing this. As again, nobody can see their first function, right? And it's going along. I really, it feels like to me, and because I have SE Saver, it feels like to me the SE one is one of the hardest ones. It feels like sensory in general has a really hard time with this, but again, everybody has a hard time. I'm trying to
Mhm.
evaluate right now in this moment, but like it has a really hard time recognizing that it is just absolutely pulling in sensory all the time. That what color is that light? This thing is, like constantly pulling in the senses. And then when it goes
Mhm.
to learn something, it's reading it from something that exists. Let me go to the internet. Let me get something that exists. It has already happened. Let me go get up that information. It doesn't matter what you're taking in. You're just gobbling up information. Maybe you're interested in theories, but you're not the one that is creating, you're the one that is
Mhm.
gathering. And so the obsession with this gathering, 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 and by the way, everything has to be different. This is what the
Yes.
OE functions are doing. It's different. No, that's not the same. That's different. Because the design of the OE function is seeking variety. It wants
Mm-hmm.
variety, it desires variety, it demands variety, and therefore it forces variety when there isn't any variety. And
Mm-hmm.
that game of constantly seeking new, you're putting yourself in a world where nothing is routine, nothing is being built, same problems as the NEs, nothing is
Mm-hmm.
being in order, and nothing is controlled. And now the problem that's happening though is that it's in the abstract. So the SEs are extremely unaware of their own self patterns. That's what their
Yes.
actual demon function is. Personal self reoccurring patterns. It's not different. It's the fucking same. You do the same damn things every day. It's the most predictable thing in the world. The most common phrases that we get come from the SEs. They will literally say word for word the exact same stuff. I can't
Mm-hmm.
possibly be that function because same
Mm-hmm.
exact phrasing. In fact, we'll put it in our videos. I say it all the time. We'll put it on our
Yeah.
website. And like, I have a whole page now where I'm like, all right, so just so you know, I like to, my masculine NT, like, here's what's coming. I like to like warn people, here's what's
Let
coming.
them
Cause
know.
I'm like trying to help the SEs out. Like, here are your patterns. And by the
Mm-hmm.
way, it's the collective pattern of everyone that doesn't know what is around the corner,
Right.
because NI is designed to go simulate out what's around the corner so I don't get burned by that thing that's around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And where us SEs will get confused if it's not super clear, if it wasn't spelled out, if you didn't explain it perfectly, because I'm not the one that is responsible for guessing. I'm not the one
Mm-hmm.
that's responsible to assume. It's like, the information. You're allowed to lean on that a little bit. Somebody doesn't have
Right.
to spell out that they're upset at you. You don't have to get that spelled out. You can guess, you can assume, you can jump,
Mm-hmm.
you can leap. But if your lead function is SE, you're designed to take things at face value. And that's what the
Mm-hmm.
function is doing all day long. And
Yeah.
the ones that get really good are the ones that can see it and accept it, that their brain
Mm-hmm.
is going to be doing that. Look, I'm going all day long. I'm gathering in all the dumb sensor. I know I'm doing it. That's okay. But I do love the NI. I love that the NI is actually not a spooky, scary place. I'm allowed to
Mm-hmm.
lean. I'm allowed to guess. I'm allowed to hypothesize. And that's where,
Mm.
if you are a Savior SE, give yourself the permission to start giving yourself guesses. I always like to say, I taught myself a language early on where, like a scientific method language of
Mm-hmm.
allegedly talk, where I'm like, my first guess is XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'll say my guess at this time, and it allows my SE to calm down because the SE is designed to prove that something exists, that something is real, that it's not fake. It loves
Mm-hmm.
real. SE
Yeah.
just loves what is real, and fake
Mm-hmm.
is bad. And if you can give yourself the ability to guess, to jump, to leap, and then also fail at that, you can then
Right.
practice and get better and better, and then your guesses get better. It just takes time. That's something that
Mm-hmm.
takes a lot of time, is to be able to hone in your biases, to be able to hone in your guesses. It's a
Mm-hmm.
long journey. It's a process. And of course, if you're SE brain,
Mm-hmm.
you don't love the journey. You love
Yeah.
like, I want it and I want it
Hitting it.
now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another problem, is that you're not naturally going to be very patient for the block building that it takes
Mm-hmm.
that something can happen, but it's going to take time. SEs hate it. Like, it's so funny. I'll hear from SEs. They're like, I've been working on this thing for a really long time. And then you get the sensor on really long time, and it's like 2 weeks. You're like, what? It's not a really long time. Talk to me when you've
I
been doing it 10 years. And that's a really long time. So
yeah.
giving
You,
themselves the ability to build when the unknown is what they're choosing to create for themselves. They're creating the pathway their own selves. It's
mm-hmm.
unknown, but I'm going to choose that this is who I am. This is where I'm going. It doesn't, I don't have a degree or the sensor proof of it. But I'm creating a map for myself. And again, another part that will help people, because it's what is beautiful about NI, is being able to use like things. So
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm going to be a doctor. Great. Then you can use something similar that doesn't have to be exactly in the same profession. You're allowed to learn from completely different sources
Yeah.
and force those to be the same. Oh, well, that person's not my exact sensor type. There's so much that you can
So
pull
much.
from that person by using NI and going, these are actually the same. Like if you're SE,
Mm-hmm.
stop saying that's not the same. Stop it. Just help yourself know that that's your default wiring. And just go, these are different. I'm special and different. I'm a unique snowflake. Be like, this is the same, and here's how it is the same. It's just a mental
Mm,
practice to
yeah.
practice in creating things to smush together like NI does. So
Yeah. Oh
yeah.
gosh, that second one was really good. And I think that like that's like you said, that's a good practice to get in the habit of doing because it's going to take time to like create those like to feel that just like to get that muscle memory in a way to be like I can fit this into this category. Like it's
Mm,
okay. It can move. This is the same and like then not feeling that resistance when you're coming up against it
right.
again. I was laughing when because you like said it right after I thought it was the SEs and the like it's been such a long time thing.
Have
It's
you
so funny
personally
that
experienced this?
the few people who I know who have SE as a savior,
Hmm.
they'll be like, they'll be like, man, I've been working on this thing and like I don't think it's working out. I think I have to move on. Like, next
Right?
thing go. And I'm like, well, how long has it been? They're like 2 months, and I'm like, you're you've just started. Like you've
Yeah.
just started.
Right,
You don't
right,
even know anything yet like about this
right,
thing. And of course like that's my own bias like on top of it. I'm sure there's somewhere to meet in the middle, but
right,
like
right.
to me it's like if someone's talking about like a new job or a new this or that, I'm like, okay, it's going to take you like at least a year to like almost know what you're doing. And
Right,
then like after that like maybe you can start to like actually get some traction and building something.
right.
But it's so funny to see how it's like because they're so quick to fire, it's like in reality, if I'm not seeing a change in reality, if I'm not seeing the results in reality right now, well, obviously it's not working. So I got to move on to
Obviously,
the
it's the
next.
wrong, yeah, it's the wrong
Yeah,
path.
yeah.
That's such a good thing. So, also, what's interesting is how do you know that thing should take you about a year? So, that's
Mm-hmm.
back to if you're using NI, you should be going and studying what is the patterns of
Mm-hmm.
success. What are the
Right.
patterns of business? How long, what's the up, what's the plateau, what's the down? You should be studying all of the reoccurring patterns that have been happening forever. You don't have to, it's not actually new. There's a lot of known. We're not unique. You didn't just get placed on a planet that started yesterday. Like you can go and study McDonald's and how that pathway went. You can go and study Oprah and how her pathway, like all of these things have so much reoccurring pattern where you can see the same, trajectory over and over and over again. Therefore, you can help your own self prepare. Okay, this is going to suck, but this is what I'm signing myself up for. This is how
Yeah.
long it actually takes for something to get off the ground. And then
Mm-hmm.
like is it your save your NI or save your SE that is the right answer? If you're looking at objective reality where you're saying
Mm-hmm.
this is how long things usually take, now
Mm-hmm.
you can start setting some deadlines for yourself. That's back to, the objective goals, setting some deadlines for yourself where you're like, if I haven't seen any actual results by this time, then I'm allowed to change. Because the problem with SE is we will try stuff. I've seen this a lot with like health, right? Where someone will have
Mm-hmm.
like stomach issues or stuff like that. And they will be like, oh, I tried that. It's like, tried it one day, tried it for a
Yeah.
week and tossed it. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
that was the right answer, but you
Yeah.
didn't do either
You'll never
enough or
know.
you didn't,
Yeah.
you'll never know. And so it's like, let me try this. It's like going shopping and just throwing, random answers into your shopping bag. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
you got to know the patterns and how long things usually take and then set objective
Mm-hmm.
measures because maybe NI, you need to go longer, or maybe SE, you do need to jump. It
Mm-hmm.
depends. Yeah.
Yeah. Got I remember when I signed up for the OP in the very beginning and like I saw the 512 scale, I saw kind of like how you guys were doing typing. I'm like, oh, it's gonna take me years to be able to do this well. Years. Like
Right, right,
like that was my initial thought. This is gonna take me a long ass
right,
time,
right, right.
years category. And I was like, and being OI, I'm like, oh great, I'm all in, let's go. I get to rework the same information for
I love
years, and
that.
like, yeah, I'm so excited. And then to see the contrast of like people who will enter the class, and if they're OE, it's like, I haven't got results yet. It's been like 2 months.
Right.
Like, oh, obviously this thing doesn't work. I'm out. And it's like, oh, come on, man. Like, see the
Right.
pattern of like, this is going to take, and that's also like the NI prediction of like, I may not know, like based off other people, because this hasn't existed for that long, but I
Right.
can take a guess that this is likely, with the amount of data that's in here, going to take a long time to figure out,
Right. You're allowed to make mistakes. If it's right, you're good, and if it's not right, you don't care because you're like, "Oh, I'll
Yeah.
just adjust my guesser.
Mhm.
I'll practice guessing." Yeah, very
um
much so.
so okay, so to SI, introverted sensing,
Yeah.
um I think, yeah, so it's an interesting function. I admire SI so much, and it
Right.
baffles me in so many ways, and I have so much respect for it, and then I also like absolutely like loathe it if I'm having to like face it
If you
sometimes,
have to do it, yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah, like it's just, there's something about it that like it almost feels painful to do, but I'm like, I have so much respect for this thing,
Yeah.
but like I'm supposed to know that like you check, like I did this video on SI where it was like I found these cleaning lists that people create, like people who are really good at like the SI like cleaning stuff,
Right.
that brought attention to the fact that like I have I didn't even know that you're supposed to like wash a wall or like wash it, like, and then I like looked at my door, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's filthy, and I'm like, this this is
Glad I
like,
have that list.
yeah, and I was like, ah, gosh, like, so I have so much respect for it, but it's also painful. But for those
Right.
who have SI first, so like our ISJ types,
Right.
what are they getting hit with as it relates to the NE at the bottom of their stack?
Okay. Right. It's funny that you say that. So just channel change. Like
Hmm.
Martha Stewart, I used to get every single like Martha Stewart or Martha Stewart weddings or whatever, like back in the
Hmm.
day when I was in, junior high and high school.
Hmm.
And she always had this calendar in the beginning of the magazine that was like what her calendar was, SIFI. And
Yeah.
it was the most insane shit where it's like every week she was like changing her sheets, like changing out all the sheets in her giant house. I'm like,
I know.
every week you're changing all of that. You're not just washing
All
them.
of
You're
them?
like changing them. Like what the? And then it was just like washing the walls, stuff like that, like
Yeah,
polishing the silver. I'm like, no, no one does that. Like,
I
no,
know.
she actually does that. Like, it's
I
just,
know.
what
It
are
doesn't
you
seem
doing?
real. As SE
Yeah.
doesn't seem, you're like, no one does that.
No
You're
one
making
does
it up.
that. Which is that's exactly what I thought back in the day. I'm like, no one does that. And I just thought like, oh, this is just a lie to be like suggestions. I'm like, the more
Hmm.
I like actually knew, who she was, I'm like, oh, she really is
She
doing
really
that,
does. Yeah.
And so here's the interesting thing. Let me talk about SI a little bit. The interesting thing about SI is that like, so take Martha Stewart. She's super clean and super organized in her personal life. That's not every SI. I mean, some SIs
Hmm.
you'll go into their house and you're like, oh my God, it's a hoarder house. Like
Hmm.
it's not a it's what they randomly, again, this is the same thing, OIs are so the same. IJs are very much the same. I have two
Yes.
IJs here. One's an SI, one's an NI, and they're
Hmm.
so much the same because
Hmm.
they both have pet projects. It's both
Hmm.
specific to the person. It's
Hmm.
it's what they happen to be OI, hamster wheeling on.
Hmm.
And just with the SIs, it's specific, and with the NI, it's the grand scheme. This comes after this comes after this comes after this. So it's
Right.
not necessarily every SI you're going to meet is going to be good with cleaning their walls. A lot of them
Yeah.
are not. So it's
Hmm.
it's the thing about SI is it's responsible to track things in physical reality. So a lot of them will go after things like their finances. They will go after things like healthcare. They will go after things like 401ks. It's like all the stuff that you're like, huh? Like that very specific stuff that I don't respect. I just jump right over like, yeah, yeah, all that stupid shit. Like I don't pay attention to the 401ks, the whatever. Like I'm just not interested. But that's where they take the systems that are happening in physical reality very seriously, or just they're
Hmm.
responsible for them.
Yeah.
And whether it's your specific thing that you're focusing on, it's again, it's specific, it's introverted. So
Hmm.
um they'll have a lot of that stuff in control. Like they'll have their plan. Here's what I'm going to wear next weekend, or I have a trip
Mhm.
coming up and this is what I will wear for my trip coming up. Let me plan my outfits 10 years in advance. Let me plan
Mhm.
my whole outfits, and my whole wardrobe is planned, like whatever their SI is locked onto, you know? And the problem with that is if you're ordering everything in the physical reality, you'll be going to again and again and again, going on these events and going to certain things that you and I would be like, oh my God, where, but it's like, well, nothing bad has happened yet. You know, you're like
Mhm.
watching somebody who's just in their routine, in their way of doing life, where,
Right.
you know, if you and I were to watch from the outside with NI, we'd be like, oh, that, oh, you made it through, you know, because the SI is going through like, this is my routine. And if nothing bad has happened in my
Just
routine, I'm not really scared by that. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm totally like, they jump off cliffs in that way where they're
Mhm.
like, routine, go, 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 routine, go, go, go. And it's like, but aren't you afraid? Like, say for instance, they were a truck driver, which I don't know how many truck drivers are actually SI, but let's say they were, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So you have like an entire life, an entire job built on, I'm a truck driver. This is what I do. I've always done this. This is what I've always done. This is what I've always done. This is what I do, right? Or, you know, a farmer. This is what I do. This is what I've always done. I do this thing. This is my thing. I do my SI and I get my stuff and I do this thing. And, you know, you're watching from the outside. Yeah, but that whole entire industry is going to get cut off by AI, or that
Mhm.
whole entire industry is going to get cut off by the weather's not really going well, or that whole entire industry is going to get cut off by the pandemic. And the SI it's like, you know, the SEs will be like worried once it's happening, and the SIs it'll take them even a minute once it's happening
Mhm.
to realize there is a pattern that they haven't seen, there is a possibility that they haven't tracked, and that terrifies them because it's an area that they just don't go to, and it will only terrify them. This is what I've kind of noticed, is like it only seems to terrify them once they have gone through a couple of them. Like they have to go through a few before they're like, you know, shit, stuff is coming. So there'll be
Mhm.
events that will happen where they'll make it through, or their job will still be secure this time around, or there'll be a bunch of
Right.
firings and they'll still be okay this time around. And but because their intuition does know it is pinging, it's just unconscious, it
Mhm.
will keep them up at night. It'll give them a lot of anxiety, or they'll watch shows where they'll see patterns like that happen
Mm.
and then not process them quite all the way through to then do anything about it. Not assume that that's going to happen to me, because
Mhm.
I've got my thing, I've got my order, I've got my way, and I'm not going to pay attention to that yet.
Mhm.
And that just builds an extreme amount of anxiety. A lot of times, it seems like the demon any, they'll have some pretty intense crashes. Just any will hit them all at once and it'll overwhelm them. It will feel like the sky is falling. They still have the same kinds of demon intuition fears that the SEs have,
Mhm.
where it feels like, you know, something mystical, something
Didn't see it
demon
coming.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't see it coming, the unknown, because they're not responsibly tracking the what ifs, you know, talking from the all
Mhm.
the way from the very beginning. The NEs are constantly tracking the
Right.
what ifs
What
and
ifs?
then
Yeah.
scaring themselves. It's the demon NE of what if and just not ever really changing up their routine, changing up their plan, their schedule, their job, whatever they have very locked in for that possible what if. So that's where they get
Mhm.
themselves into some problems. And unfortunately, a lot of times the waves of reality will knock them out of their plan.
Mhm.
And what's kind of sad is that, you know, it then becomes hard to start over because it's like, well,
Mhm.
that was my thing. Now what do I do? You know, and that's tough.
Right. Yeah. Oh gosh, that's so good. And like in so much of like the S, like just the IJ, I mean, the human needs again, but of like I'm not allowed um to like change this up, right?
Right.
I'm not allowed to OE. You know, if I've done
Right.
this certain way, you know, if I've created a reality that is structured in how I do my lawn, if I create a
Right.
reality that is structured in the kind of clothes that I wear, the whatever it is. There's this guy close to where I live. We call him Lawn Guy because he SI lawn is perfect, like perfection, And I'm
Goes
just
out
like,
there
oh
with the clippers.
gosh,
Just make sure.
he does, and he's like wearing
Right.
his whole outfit with the hat and like
Yes.
the long sleeves and the whole thing, and like it,
Right.
but it's perfect,
Mm.
and it's like such a structured reality that has been curated, through such a period of time, and it's like how would Long Guy feel like if he just like let his lawn grow one month,
I know,
like
right.
like
His world would break.
yeah, and or like what happens if you get an injury, right? And you can't
Right.
take care of your lawn that
Right.
way, right now. Like what does that processing look like?
Right.
And I think a lot of it just for the IJs in general comes back to like it's okay to switch it up. Like it's okay to like
Yeah.
let the OE come through and pass through, and it's okay.
Yeah, so one of the sad things is that you'll hear the demon innies or just IJs in general that will say things like, "Oh, I really wish I could do a job like this," or "I really wish I
Mm,
could explore something
yeah.
like this." Anyways, back to my thing, back
Yep.
to my order, and a lot of them will get to the end of their life being like, I didn't live. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
actually, I was so busy building. And this is everyone's story. I didn't live because I didn't let myself
Right.
do my demon functions. So the IJ story is I just kept doing my lane and only
Mm-hmm.
my lane and didn't explore outside of my lane, thinking
Mm-hmm.
that this was the right answer, even though it would have been great to be a pilot or, whatever their
Right.
imagination. But can't you got to go back to just doing the routine, just obsessively doing the routine, and therefore not actually living a life that they fully want. And same thing with the OEs.
Mm-hmm.
OEs are
Yeah.
I'm constantly exploring and never being the one to stay in a lane and never being the one to build, and therefore hating the life that I'm at now, because a lot of where you start scaling and going up is because you sacrificed some of those extroverted pathways to
Mm-hmm.
build your own leveling up. A lot of people believe there's a way to shortcut and get past all that. Really is
Mm-hmm.
not. You got to
There's
do
not.
both.
You gotta
Got to
do
do
both.
both. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my mantra kind of like the last year or so that I have to keep brainwashing into myself is like for my particular functions is I can do whatever I want.
Right.
And it feels so like in the back of my head immediately it's like no you can't. Like,
No, you can't. Right? I
yeah,
know.
no, but it's like there is truth behind that, and the more that I continue to keep like bringing that through my mind, it's just the constant, it's my own brainwashing of reminding myself that like I am allowed to choose, I am allowed
Yeah.
to determine for myself, I am allowed to change directions. So
Yeah.
um
As long as you
okay,
give
cool.
yourself the ability to fail and time,
Yes.
that statement is very true.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
unless you want to go kill a bunch of people, then, you're not really allowed to do it.
Yeah, no, not that.
Someone will stop you,
There's of course
hopefully.
there's an overarching OI umbrella to all of this, right? We're not going too OE. We already have our OI determined, and then anything inside that box, is fair game. Um,
That's good.
okay, so so moving on to the decider functions. Let's just start with our old favorite TE.
Yay.
Extroverted thinking, an old friend. So TE, oh gosh, I could talk about this for so long, but I
Right.
want to hear your thoughts on
Okay.
the
You want to
TE
hear my
journey.
thoughts on TE?
Yes, please. Thank you. I would love to hear your DE.
I would like to hear your thoughts. No, I would like to hear your thoughts.
So, and from your own self experience as being TE first on top, what does it look like having that FI there at the bottom? And what does that
Yeah.
darkness look like for people?
Oh, dark. It's very dark.
Hmm.
So again, just like everybody else, you can't see it at first. That was one of the most fascinating parts for me of the discovery, of course, because it's my lead function. But when I started piecing together what TE was, it was so funny. I can visually remember I was mowing the lawn where I'm like, oh my God, I think that this is what I'm doing. And then as soon as you start tracking that pattern, you're like, this is what I'm doing all the
Hmm.
time.
Yeah.
We'll get a lot of like EJs that will be like, I can't see that. I don't think I'm doing that. I'm like, you're like, just wait,
Yep.
just wait. It gets pretty scary because you're just
Hmm.
like, there's no way I'm constantly trying to ping off the tribe like all
Hmm.
the time. What about when you're alone? And that's why I was figuring it out when I was alone. Because
Hmm.
I'm having conversations with Dave, and Dave in my head is in a bad mood and saying no.
Uh-huh.
What? Like,
Hmm.
what did you create? And then like I
Hmm.
realized this is what was really like crazy making is that I would then create that reality. I would go make that happen
Mm,
because I'm now walking
dang.
in the room. This is every demon FI, by the way. I'm now
Yeah.
walking in the room in a bad state because I just had an argument in my head with
Hmm.
poor Dave. And if you walk in the room, you're just sitting there like, what? Like just some, introvert. What? You know? Just in his OI doing his thing
Right.
that he's obsessed about.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to go to the store and I'm going to get some makeup. And he's like, okay, can you just go? Like, it just does not care. And
Yo,
so, like,
weirdo.
yeah, like, especially if you FI want something. And this is what's so
Yeah.
fascinating about Demon FI is the more you want it, the more you mess it up and the more you dramatize
Hmm.
it and the more you are not allowed to have it, the more you
Hmm.
want it. And what the
Yeah.
fear is such a weird function, the demon FI at the bottom. Or, even where you have it, Lindsay, but like
Hmm.
I am not allowed to like what I like, and
Hmm.
I'm terrified of what? My own bad emotions happening.
Hmm.
I'm terrified of imploding with sadness, with anger,
Hmm.
with rage. I'm terrified of that like black hole of my own, I'm not good enough. I have no value.
Hmm.
Just it's like a sinking feeling, especially with the feminine.
Mm. Yeah.
And you're just like all at once, you don't realize how much if your brain is all day long having conversations with the outside world and coming up with reasons and arguments to say
Yes.
they fairly weren't doing XYZ. Well, if you weren't doing this. Well, see, others are
Mm.
saying this. And now if you can't see yourself, then you don't know XYZ, da, 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 da. And it's just a weird arguing reason machine. And it's like, oh, well, that's a horrible function. Why would you want a function that is designed to argue about nothing? Like
Hmm.
debate all the time, just
Yeah.
constantly debating, constantly arguing about nothing. And if there
Yeah.
isn't an argument, find one. So,
Hmm.
like, the crazy thing about lead TE or, lead DE in general is that it's very much like it's it's what's that lion Lambert, it's like you are Lambert the lion and you're in a pack of sheep, but you think that you're a sheep because you're a sheep at heart even though you're a
Mm.
lion
Yeah.
on the outside. So you think that you are this poor
Uh-huh.
little me, but you're this bear, and the
Uh-huh.
deception causes all kinds of conflict. So if anybody ever says anything to you that
Hmm.
is offensive, it's like you now have all the permission of the world to be offended and
Hmm.
attack back because of vengeance. Now, if you're
Hmm.
feminine TE, it's a, you know, I'll
Hmm.
just, troll you or bitch at you. It's not as like aggressive and barking, but it's still
Hmm.
very much like, oh yeah, bah, 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 because
Yeah.
you're listening constantly all day long for the threats to come in,
Yeah.
for the arguments to come in. You're waiting for the arguments to come in because you've just been having all these arguments. So the second somebody
Gosh, yeah.
says any tiny little thing against you, you are now allowed with the like empowerment of rage to be fully offended, to be fully like I have all of these reasons backed up, built up to
Ammunition.
just ammunition explode back at you because I already knew this was going to come in and I already knew all this and I already had all these arguments and I already saw how you're wrong here and they're wrong here and they're and like the person's like, what? The other person is not allowed to just be because you've got it loaded.
Yeah.
This is where the Karen energy comes from. You're like, what the hell was that all about?
Hmm.
Why is this lady yelling at somebody
Yeah.
walking their dog? Like, what is going on? Where is this coming
Right.
from? And it's just all day long being fed by somebody is unfairly telling you you are not allowed, and therefore you're now supposed to come up with all these things to fight, to battle, and therefore the actual fear and the sadness is so far away, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the best thing that the TEs can do for themselves is to 1,000% recognize the game. The game is
Mm-hmm.
not outside of yourself. It is 1,000% coming from an internal source. It is 1,000% coming from you telling yourself that you are a victim, you telling
Mm-hmm.
yourself that you have been victimized, you telling yourself that you are not allowed. It is only coming from the
Yeah.
self. And if you can recognize that that's the only game, because of course some people are going to say shit, of course,
Mm-hmm.
but like, let them say it with nothing empowered behind it and be like, yeah, I understand. I felt that way before. Like, let the person
Mm-hmm.
make some mistakes,
Yeah.
or even say something. Maybe you are being an asshole. Maybe you do
Mm-hmm.
need to be offended,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And like
Yeah.
that's what's so crazy about the DEs. It's like we're very Queen of Hearts, where it's like off with their heads. You said something, be
Mm-hmm.
off with your head because I'm just retaliating back. It's fair. No, it's not fair.
Yeah.
The person said you're being an asshole. You don't need to blow them up and explode them because
Yeah.
it's you are being an asshole. You did need to be called out, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so being able to calmly receive takes going
Receive.
internally and
Yeah.
saying, first of all, I am not a victim. I am
Mm-hmm.
creating that delusion. I am allowed. Go build that for yourself. Go build your own aloudness. Go get for yourself what you need. And then the bigger thing is design who you are and then decide if you are serving your own purpose. That's what the DIs do.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I am who I say
Design
I
who you
am.
are. That's great.
Design it
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because you're not going to get it from the outside world. The amount of work
Yeah.
that I have seen that I've done and people will still complain, it would
Mm-hmm.
make me crazy. And it did at first, you're like, what? Oh my God, I can't believe people would complain. I've done all this
Right.
giving. How the
Yeah.
hell? And like, if I didn't have like the work on my I would feel very insecure all the time. And I did have like kind of an emotional, like, come to Jesus moment where I'm like, all right, I can't keep doing this DE thing. I still need a whole nother layer of work here where I'm going, these are my DI goals. This is who I want to be. And I'm on a journey. I'm not quite there yet, but these are the things that I want to see myself as. This is the emotional state that I want to choose, even coming today. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, what do we talk about? No, no, no. Who do I want to be? How do I want to
Mm-hmm.
feel? How do I want to make Lindsay feel when we're done? Those
Mm-hmm.
are all things that I'm just calmly, emotionally choosing.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, I am the source of peace. I am the
Yeah.
source of Zen. I am the source of love. And so
Mm-hmm.
when, the insults or the whatever come, I'm able to be like, I understand. Because
Mm-hmm.
if I'm not giving them the ability to let the information flow back and forth as a DE, then I'm
Mm-hmm.
not also letting myself make those same mistakes. I'm not letting
Right.
myself,
Yeah. Oh,
uh,
that's so good.
right, 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 right. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's so like at heart we're all IPs, right?
Yeah.
We all have that DI, like is who we are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's something that's always impressed me about the IPs. And like I've been really trying to focus on them for my own personal journey, like studying them of like how are they doing
Yeah.
what they're doing? What is
Right.
their perspective towards the world in a default nature? And they don't even know that they're doing it, you know?
Right.
Um, and it's just like it's constantly creating those self standards, like you're saying, designing, reality for themselves and also like
Right.
holding themselves accountable to like who they are, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, am I being authentic to myself? Am I being honest about myself? And TE, I think especially, it's like it doesn't it wants to be outwardly honest, like it wants to be honest and like is the temperature the same across the board?
Yes.
But I don't want to be inwardly honest because my inward world
Yes.
is FI and it's hurt. And so
Right.
I can't really there's something to be honest about there. It's just emotional. So
Yes.
let's just brush it off to the side and keep going. I don't want to be
Yeah.
self-critical because that makes me feel bad.
Right. And I never want
And
to feel bad, so don't go there.
let's keep pushing it off.
Right.
And
Right.
it's funny, like when you're saying like when TE gets like called out, especially by others, especially having it like for an EJ,
Yeah.
um I had a boss somewhere where I was working who was the director, and his assistant was this masculine EJ. Just like,
Yeah.
I mean, I when I first met her, I was like, oh, I know this energy all day. Like, I
Right.
I know, sister, I know what it's like, you know. And
Right.
but she just has it cranked up a little bit more than I do.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it was funny because someone had said something about the way that she was addressing them, and she was like
Yeah.
reminiscing about it in the office. And you could tell she was kind of hurt about it, but she was like processing it. She's like, oh, I can't believe they would think that or whatever, you
Right.
know. And it's so funny how the world sees type. They see it so clearly. And the boss walks out and he's
Yeah.
like, well, Dorothy, that's because you're always barking at everyone. And she just like, I was
I was
dying.
like,
I had to turn away because I was like, oh my gosh, could he say masculine TE any more clearly?
all
Like,
right. Bark, bark, bark,
and
bark, bark.
yeah, and
Yeah.
she did not come to work the next 2 days
I
because she was
bet
so
not.
hurt,
Yes.
and she was home processing her emotions, you know. And
Yes.
you know, a few days later, like, you know, she comes back and like whatever, it's a whole thing, and like, and now the whole tribe
Right.
is like, oh, okay, like be careful now, like
Right.
what you say.
Right. Be
And
careful now.
hmm
That's so not good
yeah,
because then
and
you lose feedback
yes, you lose
and you can't
objectivity, the thing
grow.
that you actually
Yeah.
really want, allegedly,
Right.
you know.
1000%.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's scary for the EJs. That's the scariest position you can be in is when you punish the tribe for sharing negative things about you, they stop helping you. And then you
hmm
really can't emotionally connect. That's
hmm
because the tribe starts doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder
Worst
if
fear.
like, I think like everyone, I think you guys said it once, like people lie to you because you've trained them that they have to.
Yes.
And
Oh my God.
I wonder if like with the single deciders, it's like people will lie to you like about yourself. And like I wonder if for observers, it's like people will lie to you like about things to, you know, almost in a
Yeah.
way kind of control what they're thinking that your reaction might be in a way, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely see the decider one for sure. Everybody
Yeah.
everybody has to lie to the IP because the IP is deciding this is who I am and it's so conclusionary decision wise, it's very like this is who I am and the tribe's like is there any room for feedback? And then with the DE, you know that it's going to offend them, so you can't. With
hmm
the IJ and EP, what
Not quite sure what it'll be. Yeah.
what it feels like from my perspective is that they get lied to because they won't listen. I would say it's a
Mm,
listening thing. It feels like with the EPs, I'm trying to share, hey, here's the sorry, but this is the OI. Like
hmm
either here's what's coming and just it just feels like they can't hear it. Can't
Yeah.
hear it.
Ah,
It's
yeah,
not
that
missing
resonates.
information. It's there. It's not
Yeah.
missing. It's not missing information. It is there. It's not missing.
Thank you, double observer.
It's there. I swear it's there. You're just not listening. That's all it is. It's okay.
Gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. That's what I would
Dang, that's
say.
so true. That is
So it's
there.
like
Yeah.
technically it's like on both sides it's someone's not listening.
hmm
Um so yeah. Yeah. But the
That's really good.
deciders feel like they get actually like omitted. Like people will just stop telling them the stuff, you know.
hmm Yeah.
Gosh.
Okay, so let's since we're on the T's, let's go over to TI.
All right.
Um, our TI, so our IPTI friends.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's interesting. Like I've you know, having worked now with some TIs, I've been
Yeah.
able to really understand the function at another level, you know. And it's at first it baffled me, and I was so confused that I had to like go all weird IJ in on it and like study it so like I could
Yeah.
understand it better. Like I'm like I have to figure this puzzle out, you know, like I have to figure out what this function is like.
NT it. Yeah.
How? Like why like that though? Like what are you doing
Yeah.
with the tribe? You know, like, oh wait, you do have FE. Well, you have FE more than I do. Okay, now this is weird. So okay, the tribe's
Right.
reactions, like you're poking people on purpose. So like, so
Yeah.
from you working with the
Yeah.
TIs, where are they getting hit with that FE at the
Ooh.
bottom?
The biggest thing that, and this is again, this is going to be the NI reoccurring theme here, is that you go all in on the savior and therefore cause massive problems on the demon. So what I see happening with the TIs is that it's so much alike. It is so much like, because it's an introverted function. So it's a lot like the OI function where it has a pet project, a pet thing that it's trying to figure out. I am trying to figure out, how do I do this thing? How do I do the thing?
Do.
How do I
Yep.
build the skills? How do I do it? How do I build it? How do I skill wise, you know?
Hmm.
And like, again, back to like the introverted problems, is they didn't ever stop and ask, was this needed? Was this wanted? How does it
Hmm.
compare? Is it already thought of before?
Yeah.
Is it already created before? Is it already built before? And or like, and again, who cares if it's built before? Who cares if it's, thought of before? But like, are you advancing it? Are you aware of the outside perspective on this thing?
Yes.
And the
Hmm.
problem with the introverted function, because it's not trying to ping at all, it will spend a really long time in a hole. And
Hmm.
a lot of times it's really hard to track. If it's not just like an app that they're building, a lot of times they'll be building an app or building a thing that they're working on, right?
Hmm.
If it's not a thing that they're working on, but it's a reason or a truth or a thought, it's hard to
Yes.
track that they're like that far off. Like you're like,
Right.
I keep seeing your results. And like, that's another thing with all the introverted functions. You like see the results. It's like, okay, you're not getting the results. Can you tell
Yeah.
me about what's going on in there? And they'll share their extroverted functions all day long, but they
Hmm.
won't share like, and as soon as they share, like, okay, here's my idea or here's my
Hmm.
reasons. And you're like, oh, that's bullshit. Like, oops, I gotta be careful with my
Yeah.
masculine TE. I'm like, oh yeah, that's not gonna work. Like so fast, my
Yeah.
TE is just like, nope,
Hmm.
that's not gonna work
Yep.
because I'm out here, you know?
Yeah.
And if it is, and of course, if it's at a higher level than what I'm thinking of, great. Like a lot of times they will get themselves into really super interesting stacking of high level thought thinking, especially when it comes to like what Neil deGrasse Tyson's doing, like where you're like
Yeah.
stacking logic, but it's in a
Oh,
realm where
yeah.
I'm like, I don't even go there. My TE is like, cool, I
Yeah.
won't even
You're
go
up
that deep.
there
I won't even
walking
stack
along
that.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got random stupid shit to do. Um, so that's where they'll get caught is when you're like, the results are not panning out here. Your thing isn't working out. Your app isn't working out. Therefore I now can track, how did you get into this stacking of reason thing,
Hmm.
and because it's all in, they're spending all this time on, this is what is true. This is what is right and wrong. And it matters so deeply that it is who they are, and therefore they are willing to take it to their grave. They're like willing to take it down to death, and it's not even something that they should be necessarily dying on, but it will be
Hmm.
something that hits them in a way that is like, oh, this is great, I know I'm right, I know I'm onto something. And again,
Right.
because it's
Oh
an
gosh, it
introverted,
feeds it.
it feeds it. It's like, I know I'm right, I know I'm onto something. And the tribe will, again, this is all the introverted functions, if the tribe is trying to get some information into them, uh they will be able to quickly be like, you're wrong. Here's my stacked reasons. It's
Hmm.
bullshit, but these are my stacked reasons. And therefore, I can quickly eliminate that outside feedback and go right back to what makes
Mm.
me good, what makes me comfortable. Now, again, like the unconscious knows. The unconscious knows that it's
Yeah.
stacking on something that isn't legit. And therefore, it will have this like building anxiety of, I'm so obligated to this addiction. It feels so much like an addiction. I'm so obligated to this addiction
Hmm.
that I'm very much ostracized from anyone outside of myself. And you'll believe, like, this is
Yes.
what I see for the introverted functions, all of them. You'll believe that this thing that you're working on is so special and so magnificent because you're not pinging off the outside world to any degree, that you'll aggrandize it and you'll make it more than it is. And therefore, people outside of yourself will seem like peons,
Hmm.
unless there's another person that happens to be working on the same type of thing that you're working on and they've excelled higher in their field, then you'll
Right.
really bow down to that type of person.
Yes.
That's where you'll see the side to
Respect
side
that one
movement.
person.
That
Yeah.
one person, yeah.
Yeah.
So that happens a lot. And then again, because it's so narrowed in, you'll see some of the TIs get too obsessive and too neurotic about that one person or that one thing
Hmm.
because they're dumping all of that energy in one area, right?
Right.
And a lot of what I've seen, because we've had quite a few like TIs that will come and a lot of them will email us and they'll be like, I've come up with this amazing idea. And sometimes, like, this is what's sad, is sometimes it's literally just our information and the words changed around, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, and it's like, I think I'm onto something. I think this is the greatest thing ever. I think this is the greatest tool
Right.
ever. This is the greatest tool for typing ever. And like, my first thing is like, is it working? You know, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how's it
Yeah.
working? Oh, well, I haven't even
PE.
checked that yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're watching that, and the problem for the TIs, this is where they really get so hurt and then kind of explode their life to a lot, is that when they present their idea to the tribe and the tribe is like, cool,
Mm-hmm.
all that energy, it just feels like death, you know? It's like just a
Yeah.
major insult from the tribe that
Yeah. It feels,
that
yeah, insulting is such a good word
yeah,
for it. It
yeah,
feels like it's a direct insult because it's like in their mind, it's like, I've done so much work in this
right,
area. Like
right,
I should be on the throne now, you
right,
know?
right.
And so, yeah,
It's a lot of
that's a great
pressure
way
for
to
the
say it.
tribe. Like the tribe is like,
Mm-hmm.
I I can't give you what you want there. Like what did you,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like a girlfriend situation. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like you back. I'm sorry. Like that's what it feels
Mm-hmm.
like, you know? And
Right.
that's the world that the TI is living in, is if they are just going and going and going on this thing that they're figuring out, this idea, this is going to make me, because it's really coming from that energy of like, I want to be seen, I want to be recognized, I want to be
Mm-hmm.
important, and this is just my ticket there, you know, and
Right.
like didn't check the ticket. Like you want to
Yeah.
do extroverting of check the ticket that you're about ready to
Mm.
go all in on before you're, you know, before you invest.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be some, you know, my advice, a lot of to all the TIs is before you go all in, um, and this is all the introverted functions, by the way, like check to see if somebody's already done that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I had a business partner that was like, okay, I have this amazing idea. I'm gonna build a server. I'm gonna have all these people that are gonna have like templates that I'll make, and they're gonna have their websites on our website. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
WordPress? WordPress? They make that. In fact, it's pretty great. You know, you're like
Yeah. Right.
so, but that's just a like I see that everywhere where it's not checking outwardly first and then therefore building on understanding what's around you, like knowing your environment, and then you can kind of go all in,
Mm-hmm.
like becoming aware of your surroundings before you go all in. And again, anytime you have that need energy, like the TI, it's this idea is attached to my identity. And if you don't accept this idea, then you don't accept me. And therefore, I have
Mm-hmm.
to hate and attack you
Right.
because you don't see me and your existence makes me not worthy. Therefore, you need to be shamed.
Yeah.
And that's where they'll use the shame
You
mechanism.
don't see me. Gosh, that's a great way of saying
Right,
it. Yeah,
right.
because it is attached. It's right attached to the identity. I mean, it's like it's so funny because it's like I see their piece and I'm like, wow, like that's so great what they're doing, but it's like it's also so much pain. I can
Yeah,
imagine having that function, your identity, like always leading your way. It's
right,
like it's like such a blessing and it's also such a curse at the same time because what's the first thing that's going to get hit then every single time you walk into a room? It's going to be
right,
you, you
right,
know? It's like at
right.
least I get like at least my NI gets hit. Like at least that's
Yeah.
like more separated from my internal self, you know?
Wow.
Like at least that's driving the bus. But it's like, you know, if you're every time you walk into the room, if things go wrong, if things whatever happen like
Right.
not according to your DI, it's like you get hit,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
I mean, a T is a nice blocker to kind of deflect something and hit it
Right.
off someone
That
else.
guy's fault. I'll just blame, you know. Yeah, and like the DI, like the best thing that they can do for themselves is not take themselves too seriously because then they
Yeah.
will be looked up to. The
Hmm.
ones that
Yeah, that's a good point.
kill the ego, and everybody needs to kill the ego. But if there's
Hmm.
so much need energy on, I have to be, I have to be, I have to be, I do see the DI situation as like the chasing the girl in school or whatever, you know, it's
Hmm.
a dumb analogy, but if you chase a girl, automatically she's like, I don't like you because of that
Hmm.
weird need
Right.
energy. If you don't go out with me, you know, you better go out with me. I asked you out. Like it's that kind of
Hmm.
like, and it's like, of course the girl's not going to like you, even if you're a wonderful person. It's because of that like obsession over it. So the more you can just absolutely stop caring, not take yourself too seriously. You let the whole body relax, because that's a huge part of the TI, is they are not respecting their whole emotional self.
Mm-hmm.
They're not respecting that they
Yeah.
are getting emotionally moved if somebody in the room is having a negative emotional reaction to them. They have no
Mm-hmm.
idea that that's something that is still their responsibility. They are responsible to move the emotions of others if the room
Mm-hmm.
is not happy and okay. And by going all in on TI, they are wrecking the vibe of the room and therefore creating bad emotions about the thing that they're working on. And that
Mm-hmm.
is the thinker conundrum, is I'm going all in on this logical truth. I wrecked the entire vibe, and now I'm pissed at
Mm-hmm.
everyone else because the vibe is wrecked, even though I'm the one that did it. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
believe that I have power there, because that's manipulative.
Yes.
Even though they still
Right.
end up doing it, they still end up doing
Yeah.
it in a swing state of attacking and shaming and blaming. Like, they'll still do that in a
Right.
bad state. Why don't you use that in a positive state? And it will make them upset. Like, well, that
Yes.
wasn't a hard to figure out idea. It's like, hey, the idea was dumb anyways. Like, let it go. It's
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
Start using the emotion of the room, because we are all emotional beings. Let yourself accept that about yourself. Like, you know what? I'm going to just go straight for the FE and be like, guys, I really love you. Hey, you know what? Maybe
Right.
we should work on your project. Maybe we are going to accept
Yeah.
your idea now. Oh, that's so weird. Because if you're in a weird crunch state, your idea is dumb no matter what your idea is, because
Mm-hmm.
the tribe is all uneasy and don't trust you, because you're
Yeah.
not balancing the thinking side and the emotional side. When you balance the thinking and emotional side, you put everyone at ease, and now they're able to receive whatever your idea
Yes.
is. And you're able to balance, because you're like, I got feedback and my idea wasn't the best idea ever, and I don't have to think I'm stupid and dumb and now I can't do anything right. Letting
Right.
themselves breathe and not have to have so much pressure on, I better go, I better do the thing, I better, that.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's so good. Um, okay, so let's hop over since we're now, let's just kind of follow the path. So we hit TI, let's go over to FE, to hit the other side of that function. So our EFJs, our FEs first, and then having that TI at the bottom. So kind of the inverse problem.
Right.
Um, and it's, I think just with the DEs in general, it can be difficult. Like, I think they're processing, because they're doing extroverted so long, like in life, and they're seeing outside of themselves like so much, that when they get hit with that introverted world, sometimes that
Yeah.
tidal wave just like is all the, I mean, we all get wrecked by our last function, but like it's hitting that DI identity, to the fact
Yeah.
that I think sometimes like the EJs especially, they're like who even am I,
Yeah.
at this point
Right.
in life, like what even do I like. I was thinking earlier when we were talking about TE, when I'm talking to like the TE folks, and they're just like in that place where they're processing, like I don't like what, because I always ask them, like, as because I play the game too, because I also have the TE, and I'm like,
Yeah.
so what do you, no, not what helps everyone, but what do you really like doing? Like, what is the thing that you like to do for yourself?
Yeah.
No, not for the kids. No, I know you like the kids, but like for you. And then it's just like this
Right.
like deer in headlights look of like, oh, I don't I don't know. And
They
so
do kind
they
of know
do know.
sometimes.
They do.
They do. They're not allowed to say it because it's embarrassing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That.
It's like I probably have something, but we're not gonna bring that
Yeah.
out into the
We're not
open
going to
right
go
now. So
there. Yeah.
yeah.
That's
And
it.
then
Yeah.
I share some like weird story about, I discovered that I like cereal 2 years ago, and now I eat cereal every single morning, and it's great. And they're kind of like, okay, well that was a weird story. So,
Well, yours
but
isn't serious. It's like
yeah,
to everybody, it's like only that thing. It's like the thing that is yours personally. When you have a demon introverted function, it's like when you hear somebody else's, you're like, what? That can't possibly be hard for you to
yeah,
admit.
the
It's
real
like,
one.
nope, yep, that was hard for me.
So
Yeah,
for those who have Effie at the top, where
yeah,
are they getting hit in their life?
yeah. That's a good one. So the thing that I hear from the FEs when they are in their unconscious savior state is they are constantly like, I don't, and of course they have no idea how much they're doing it. But like if you're standing around an FE, you will hear them probably say 10 times an hour, Oh, do you like that? Or what do you like? Do you like that? What do you like? Did you like that? What do you like? And like constantly trying to ping to get the what does the outside extroverted spectrum value, you know?
Mm-hmm.
No idea they're doing it. Or if they're using some intuition while they're doing it, they're just watching the person and going, oh, they had a reaction there. Like they're just looking
Mm-hmm.
for people's constant chemical reactions to things
Right.
all day long. Now, I say that, and I will do that in a demon state where I will
Mm-hmm.
look at Dave's eyebrows and go, he's mad at me. You know,
Yeah.
like it will be in a fear state of I'm scared that I'm going to have bad emotions. No, this is a constant, calm, all the time staring at people's emotional states. I think
Mm-hmm.
Will Smith is a really good Will Smith and
Oh
Oprah. If
yeah.
you want to go stare at FE, those two are really, really good examples of FE. Oprah will get so up in your business and will be like, okay, so we're going to now explore your emotions that you had about this breakup that you had. And you're like, oh my God, get out of my underwear drawer, you know?
Yeah.
But it's the business of the extroverted, you know, like the I'm going to explore your emotional world because I need to know that in case I need to share it with everybody else. And you're like, oh my God,
The
like it's
FIs are just like straight up offended.
to an extreme. Get out of my business. That's what it feels like
Yeah.
for the FI, especially Demon FI. But that's their job. Their job is to go, I need to know how you felt emotionally about this situation because I need to be able to see where you're at and how you manage that so I can see how others who are trying to also go through that thing, how they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can come to what the standard is. And that's how they're kind of
Right.
figuring out the collective appropriate way to manage situations. So they will constantly be going into other people's dark worlds
Mm-hmm.
to see what hurt them. Okay, what hurt you? What made you happy? What made you happy? Okay, so and then they'll get a consensus. Now they'll still keep pinging as time goes on because the appropriateness the collective appropriateness of FE will change over time. And you know, like that's what
Mm-hmm.
they stare at all the time.
Yeah.
They're constantly staring at what is the
Updating.
emotional
Yeah.
state of the culture. Yeah, they're constantly feedbacking on that. Is everybody upset? How did the election go? How does the emotions of these people feel marginalized, but in an emotional way? So it's a constant
Mm-hmm.
pinging, and they're always taking in. So it's a very that's very it
Emotionally
hurts. You
labor.
can
Yeah.
yeah, it's a labor. Like you can there's so many FEs that will be like, "Oh, I found out that someone's dog died and I'm now crying." And you're like, "Damn, that's so much
Mm-hmm.
that is so much to take on." And just somebody that they read in a comment on Facebook, you know, that kind of thing where
Yeah.
they're bleeding a lot for the world,
Mm-hmm.
constantly weeping for the world or constantly joyful for the world. And that's just happening all the time. And so if you know, if they have a partner or if they have a person in their life and they're starting to get to the point where they're in the bitterness stage, so this happens to
Mm-hmm.
many FEs where they get to the bitterness stage. And it's where they're starting to recognize that if my partner or if my boss comes in the room and they're in a bad state, then my whole emotions change, especially if it's feminine FE. My whole emotions change, and because my emotions change, you're bad, and I don't even want to have anything to do with you because you moved my emotions, and now I'm crying for you, and I'm now pissed off about that, and I was in a good
Yeah.
state. And now I have to adjust to you and screw them. And now I hate everybody because it's
Mm.
such a responsibility to be in a
Yeah.
constant state. And like, you know, a lot of times you'll see the FEs just hating the FIs because a lot of times an FI will come in the room and be in a pissed off, bitchy mood. And they're like,
Yeah.
thanks a lot. And then the FIs will be like, I'm not moving, you know, like, especially
Right.
if it's masculine FI, like that kind of interaction is happening all the time. And I remember seeing this even growing up. I remember watching this happening in like, you know, school and stuff. You'd often have a teacher who's an ESFJ who has this positive spirit, who wants the whole classroom to be in a positive spirit,
Mm-hmm.
and some kid is
Right.
in the corner being in a bad mood. And it's like the job of the FE to shame that bad emotional state because you're not doing what I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing, which is obviously what everybody needs to be doing, and that is
Mm-hmm.
creating a cohesive emotional connection state. And that's what
Yeah.
we should be doing. You should be creating this positive emotional connection state.
Mm-hmm.
Problem with that, obviously, as we know, is if you're forcing a blanket, then you're also not respecting the individual. And that's where you start,
Mm-hmm.
and then the FEs themselves don't allow themselves to become the individual who is in a bad
Mm-hmm.
mood, who's having a bad day, who's like, fuck everyone. I don't feel good. I'm tired of playing this game. I'm not doing well, my own self, and you're just not allowed to take a break, and therefore that's where kind of the crash would come from for them. And
Mm-hmm.
interestingly enough, their crash is if they're constantly spending all of that time in this
Mm.
emotional outward realm, they feel a lot of shame and embarrassment when it comes to the parts of their life that would take a lot of stopping and figuring out and vibe wrecking.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're the one going, how's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? How do you feel about that? How do you feel? And you have to stop and pause and go, I'm sorry, let me go rage at this computer thing or spend 6 months on this computer thing that's going to have
Mm-hmm.
zero emotion, that's going to have zero payoff in the outside world. I have to go
Mm-hmm.
figure this out. I have to go figure out how do I do my shoelaces? I have to go figure out how do I clean my house? I have to go figure out my car situation. I
Yeah.
have to go figure out like all of this stuff where you're inside your head, you're all in, you're in a dark space inside the mind, and you're now taking a break from the flowering of the outside world. And if
Mm-hmm.
you do that, now you will get shamed. And what you're really afraid of as an FE is that that crazy ass other FE tribe is going to shame you because you know what that's like. You know that game. I shame people if they're in a corner not making everybody happy out here. Let's go shame them to get them out
Oh,
of the thing.
yeah.
You're now not like, well, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy that goes and has to figure out my shit and say, screw you and your emotions today because I have to do something that's really embarrassing, that makes me feel dumb, that I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to do this thing. I am going to get shamed
Yeah.
for this. I'm okay with getting shamed for this because I haven't gotten started on it yet. So
Mm-hmm.
what? I just
Yeah.
got started on how to take out my trash or how to do my shoes or how to do the lawn, whatever the thing is. Again, it's
Mm-hmm.
personal, so it's going to be in some random area that they feel shame for.
Right.
But not putting time into that, sometimes it means that you don't have a deep or fulfilling job that,
Mm-hmm.
is challenging. You get put in positions that the outside tribe is like, here, you go here in sales. We're going to put you in sales because you're good at flowering everybody and you're good at nice everybody. But the person's like, but I
Right.
want to go work on things that make me feel very smart, that push on my
Fulfilled.
brain,
Yeah.
that get me fulfilled, that gets me into that mind space. I want to go work on that. I don't want to be obligated to this outside world that is
Mm-hmm.
telling me I need to make sure everybody's happy. And if not, go shame somebody because I don't want to get shamed. So it's
Yeah.
again, all of this is about permission, giving yourself permission to set down the obligation, set down the, take off your apron of FE and let
Mm-hmm.
yourself go work on that thing. And yep, you will feel a lot of bad emotions at first, but at least you're not living a lifetime of that empty feeling, that
Yeah.
emptiness.
Yeah. That's so good. And I was speaking to a girl, she was typed by you guys, a TINE, and she was great because she knew OP and she knew how to like articulate things like well, but she helped me to see TI in a different way because she was
Mm,
always looking at how can I level myself up? Like, what can I do for
mm.
myself to like increase myself to the next level? Because I need to be better in what I've determined, like with my
The
TI,
DI
right? And she,
game. Yeah.
yeah, and she's like, but she also has NE, so she's like, maybe she's like, I think I'm going to start learning Mandarin and like do like a Mandarin course, but like,
Right.
in this area, I really need to work on this and be better because if my boss asks me this thing, I should really be able to give them the answer this much faster, and I can only give it to them this fast. So like, I need to like be better there. And it's so interesting because you like, you talk to someone like this and you're like, oh, she's nice, friendly, like good vibes,
Smart as hell.
smart as heck, and like, but you're
Yeah.
seeing like inside what's happening in the inside world. It's like, how can I level me up? How can I level me up?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the FEs are, like you said, with the time, it's like, I think it's when they're reducing that time that they allow themselves to like level up in a sense for their just for
Yeah.
their own self. It's they down the road realize they haven't built that world for
Right.
themselves, and that can be so painful when you realize like, oh gosh, like I've gone through life so far,
Right.
of like, but like what have I built for nobody else but for me,
Yeah.
where have I built
Yeah.
my skill level? And like you said, like
Right.
with the FE job, it's like, what am I just good at making people like feel happy over the phone and like
Right.
selling some stuff? Like great,
Right.
that loses its charm, I think, quite a lot.
Right. Not living for their own selves, not leveling themselves up. And then, yeah, each type can learn from the opposite. What are you
Yeah.
doing all day? What are you getting away with all day? Wow, you're
Yeah.
allowed to do that, you know?
Yeah. It's amazing. Um, okay, and so our last one today, FI, um, good old FI. So the introverted feelers, and again, looking at this kind of like from an IP position
Yeah.
of having that function first, and having that TE at the bottom, where are they finding themselves, would you say?
That's a tough one. I definitely
Mm-hmm.
feel like the FIs have it hard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's it's one of those things where you're watching um did John Mayer come out yet? Have we
Yes.
done John Mayer in the class? Yes, that came out.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know. 5 minutes in, sorry, I can't remember the timeline. That could be like months from now and I'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
Wouldn't know.
RFI,
Um,
buddy.
right. So just seeing someone that has like they really do actually build their identity on a vibe, on a feeling, on I want to be seen as important. I want to be adored. I want the
Hmm.
crowd to go, oh, wow. What, you know, like
Yeah.
that really is happening all the time. And a lot of them won't even realize it, but they will have their list of standards of I want to be this kind of person. I want to be seen as this guy. Like they have, not to make it sound low, but it's like it's the rock star vibe. Like I don't know how
Hmm.
else to describe it, but like,
Yeah, I know
and
what you
again,
mean.
if
Yeah.
you say that, the FIs will literally not like that. So you're
Yeah, I'm
like,
like, no, no, no. I'm not like that.
right, yeah, no, no, not me. I have a higher, like, no, mine's even higher than that.
Yeah.
I want to be, and that's that, back to you're talking about like what is the IP doing all day long? It's I have this higher identity, this higher purpose, this amazing epicness. You don't even know. We call it like hoorah talk, like hoorah. And
Hmm.
it's just like puffing self up, building self up, by creating these, and like for FI, it's like these things randomly matter to me
Hmm.
and that's what I'm going all in on. And,
Hmm.
the outside world needs to move. If you guys don't matter, if this doesn't matter in your world, then the outside world should move because I, my own self, am really awesome. And this is the greatest thing that I randomly favorite blankied when I was 5 and I just go all the way. And sometimes the FIs will get it right on where they'll value things that are going to help them be successful in reality
Hmm.
and sometimes not. And
Yeah.
again, with any introverted function, the problem then ends up being is that it's not actually accurate in reality. And that's
Right.
where some of the intense struggles will be for the FIs because it's built on value, because it's built on, I feel good today. I felt good about what I did. I nodded and I felt good.
Hmm.
Therefore, the job is done. I am in a happy, positive state. Therefore, the job is done in the
Right.
brain of the FI. And like I did 1 ounce of work that should have been enough because I actually feel good about it personally. And that was a conclusion that I came to my own self.
Hmm.
So that 1 ounce of work that I felt really good about personally is okay by me. And again,
Yeah.
it's like when you're going
By
back to
me.
the standards, it's the by me, says me, that you get really in trouble. And
Hmm.
again, all of these functions are caught when you use objective goals. If you set a date and a time and actual sensor numbers, and you're like, okay, I should have actually reached XYZ by this date and time, that is something outside of myself because I don't feel like it. I don't want to. I hate this, but there's
Hmm.
something outside of myself that has authority over me that I've placed onto that thing. Now you can start catching how much you are actually telling yourself, I am good. I am awesome. I am great.
Hmm.
I am, says me. I see
Right.
myself as this awesome, you don't even know. And wait a minute, I haven't built any skills. That's a big fear of the demon TE. I haven't built any skills. I don't know
Hmm.
how to build skills. The thought of building skills doesn't even occur in my mind because I'm not overworking the TE function. I'm not just spinning in my head going, all right, what's the right way to do this? How is that guy doing it? How does he do that? How does that person do that? They're not doing that. They're
Mm-hmm.
not going and attempting to ping off the tribe to figure out how do you actually get something working? What's the right way to do
Right.
something? How do you level up? How do you figure it out? Because they're spending the time in that vibe space where they're feeling self, being self, in their state, in their mood, in their vibe, which is anti the block banging state where you have no chemicals
Right.
going on. It's just very
Mm-hmm.
robotic, get the thing done, figure it out. That doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to be in that space. It doesn't make them feel awesome. And if it doesn't make them feel good or feel awesome or valuable, they're not going
Yeah.
to sit there and bonk, 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 bonk on something because that makes them feel dumb, even going to the act of trying to figure something out.
Mm-hmm.
The benefit of TE is, or the benefit of thinking in general, is that you don't care if you look dumb for a really long time because the purpose is I have to get this block
Figured
to
out. Yeah.
fit. Yeah, I have to figure it out. I'm
Mm-hmm.
totally okay that I look like an idiot for a really long time because that's the process, that's the journey. That's
Yeah.
how you figure something out is you go from okay, this isn't working to aha, I got it, click, done.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole first section of the journey of figuring anything out, if you're a savior feeler, that's way too much negative emotions. And if you're
Mm.
FI, it's the self sucks. I can't do anything. I can't figure out
Mm.
anything. I am the worst. Like you won't let yourself stay in that state because you're now imploding and it's the worst thing ever for an FI to go, I know I can't do anything. I know I can't figure out anything. I know I'm not worth
Mm-hmm.
anything. And now you're swinging and feeling the worst, you know?
Yeah. And they're like, and then they take that energy inward too. Cause it's like, I feel like when they're in that state, they're not
Yeah,
sharing it with everyone.
I
They're not
know.
being like, I'm the worst. I've come to decide I am the worst ever.
Right,
It's like, it's because it's internal, and
right,
it's like hating on the self in this internal spot and just having to carry all the weight of that. And
right.
I feel like with the FIs that I've known, if I could kind of like, reduce it down, is like, they like one thing that I realize that they'll kind of either say without saying it is like they don't feel like they're useful, like that, like they're
Yeah,
not, they haven't been useful or they aren't a
yeah,
useful person,
right,
and
right.
it's kind of that, like that utility of the TE function. It's like um FI will often be like, if someone's like let's say your neighbor's like, I could really like use some help this weekend. I got like some stuff that I need to do, and the FI person's like, okay, great, yeah, like I would love to help you, right?
Right,
And
right,
then they come over there and the person's like, okay, well, I really need, to like put these shelves together.
right.
And the FI is like, I don't like that. You
Yes,
want me to paint that wall? Like I like
yes,
painting. And the
yeah.
person's like,
Right,
well, I
right,
really need the shelves, put together. And they're
right,
like, I'm just gonna go paint the wall, right? And then it's
right,
like, then the tribe isn't like, the tribe was like, well, I didn't really need that, so I mean,
right.
I guess, all right. And then
Yes,
they realize, like retrospectively, like,
yeah,
oh, I didn't really fulfill the need for the tribe. I don't feel useful.
right,
I feel bad now.
right.
And but that
But they'll
that
have the
comes again.
confidence. They'll have that
Yeah.
confidence on the front end. Like, oh, I totally can help you out. I totally can do it.
Yes. Yes.
Like the self belief is like way
Hmm.
high. But then you go
Yeah.
to, okay, cool. So we're gonna go change your tire. Totally, let's go. Yeah. All
Yeah.
right, let's do it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Because they're just feeling it. And
Right.
then like as soon as that like dread of like
Hmm.
actually getting the
Doing the thing.
oh, just
Yeah.
instant. And then they get into shock, and that's what that you'll watch the like despair of like
Hmm.
yeah, it's like a deer in headlights look. The same thing happens. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, I feel really bad. I am not doing this, and I now look really dumb. And that's that fear of like I went in to go do this thing. I thought I was
Right.
awesome. I promised the world, and I
Hmm.
did none of it. I just stood there and watched and felt really dumb. So that's what ends up
Yeah.
happening to them a lot. They'll feel very insecure because they're like, I on the front end, I'm all in of I believe in my ability to do anything, and then the
Hmm.
actual carrying out of the thing is, you
It's
know,
hard.
yeah, yeah,
And I think it could be even harder too when, like, let's say they're putting up that energy for someone who they really FI value and care about.
yeah, yeah.
And then it's like, I FI value and care about you, so you need help with your tire. So I'm all in. Let's go do your tire, right? Like, I care, Stan. Like, you're my best bud. You get there,
Right.
and then it's like, I can't, like, I feel like I can't do this thing and figure it out.
Right.
And I care about this person and I'm letting them down.
Right.
I'm letting myself down because I can't deal with this function. And it's like almost double of like,
Yeah.
wow, I let down two people, them, I let
Right.
down the
Them and
tribe and
my,
I let down me.
yeah. That's got to be really, really hard. I do see that that's really, really hard. And again, for the demon TE, the thing that you would have to start being able to accept, and this is what's extremely difficult for the IPs especially, again, this is the same thing. It's you do have to kill the ego and accept that everyone starts all the way at the bottom of the pyramid. The DIs don't
Mm-hmm.
see that. They believe that if I can just choose that my identity is great and then I can just work on that, I'm already starting a step above everybody else. I'm starting up here and I'll just get even better. The heartbreaking thing for the IPs is that when they are at the bottom, and that's
Mm-hmm.
like, it's traumatizing, it's terrifying. But like, here's the thing, like what I was saying to you about the chaos was always there. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
tribe can see where
Yeah.
you're at. Unfortunately, the tribe can see you very
Yeah.
well. They know you're at the bottom. They're not even confused a little bit. They're just like, why does this guy think he's, well, what's with the delusion? Why does this person think that they're at the top? And that's what's so
Yeah.
heartbreaking because you're like, wait, you guys were all thinking that all along. They're like, oh yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's so obvious to everybody else what that
Mm-hmm.
person is dealing with. Like the chaos, like from the IJ's perspective, like everybody knows the IJ is the most chaotic and they have all this
Mm-hmm.
brewing. Everybody
Yeah.
knows.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows the EP is going to get controlled, like to an
Mm-hmm.
extreme. All your credit cards are going to be, cut off, like whatever it is. Like everybody knows it but the
Mm-hmm.
person themselves. So the same thing
Yeah.
that like the EJs, everybody knows that they're going to implode and they like start like counting on it. Okay, she's
Mm-hmm.
going to Karen, it's going to happen. Just give it a couple of weeks, right? Everybody
Right.
knows, oh, something said to so and so. Like the whole work environment knows that. They all
Yeah.
know. And with the IP, everybody knows that they're not actually at the top, but they
Mm-hmm.
just let that person go. Okay, they believe they're at the top. Woo! Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what's so hard. It's like you want to be able to exchange information, but if the person is all in on a delusion, which everybody is, it's really hard to get information flowing so that they can actually be where they want to go. It's
Mm-hmm.
totally, it's good. It's like if you're not at the bottom, it means you're not growing because you got to start at the
Right.
bottom a lot. It's back to like,
Yeah.
how do you even grow TE skills, building one after another to get to where you FI want to go. You have to start
Mm-hmm.
at the bottom again when it comes to this. You have to start at the bottom
Yes.
again when it comes to this. You have to start at the bottom again when it comes to this. And if you're not expecting I have to start over, that's how I actually climb is I go
Yeah.
all the way to the bottom and I become the student and I learn how to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Then you will never actually be the self-actualized person that you see yourself
Mm.
as. So just accepting, again, I mean, really all of this is ego death, letting go, emotionally processing all of that, like letting go. I mean, so much of this is if you let go of the storyline in your head, if you let go of the movie that you're playing in your head but if I did that, my whole world will
Mm-hmm.
crumble. It's like your world is crumbling and it's
Yeah.
okay. That's totally normal. That's how the hero's journey goes. You're
Mm-hmm.
just right here on the hero's journey.
Yeah.
Once you can let it all go, the world is so peaceful because then you can actually get started. It's like you haven't even gotten started if you're still holding on to that matrix. You're still holding on to
Mm-hmm.
the movie, the story. Once you let it go,
Mm-hmm.
you'll realize nobody cared. Oh, the greatest fear
Mm-hmm.
is that somebody will shame me. Literally, no one cares. And you'll be
Yeah.
really, really surprised. I think Darren Brown was like, he was saying like it was so hard for him to tell his family and tell everybody that he was gay, like growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And like when he came out, people were like, yeah, like, so he was like, okay, like it's like
Yeah.
a lesson for him to be like, wow, I held that in for a
Life can
really
start
long
now.
time and life
Mm-hmm.
can start now because you just let
Yeah.
go of that thing. What is the worst case scenario ever? It's like, great, play that out, cry about
Mm-hmm.
it, and then take action and you realize it wasn't a big deal. It was nothingness. The imagination and the creation of the fear is
Mm-hmm.
way bigger than reality,
Way
you know?
bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh. Yeah, that's so true. Thanks so much, Shan, for all of
Yeah.
this. This was such a fun interview and yeah, helping to paint the picture of what life looks like through the ups and downs that are a normal part of the journey. is really amazing. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Spreading the awareness of darkness.
Yes,
Thanks for
I
having me,
love it.
Lindsay. Yeah, it's been really great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.
Bye.
Oh.